Hi, and welcome to the Growth Fanatics podcast, brought to you by 408 Media. I'm your host, Darren Graham, and what a show we've got for you today, ladies and gents. Today's guest is Bill Stinnett of Sales Excellence. Bill is a well-renowned sales trainer and author of multiple sales books. And today we're going to be delving into how you can turn more of your prospects into paying customers. So Bill, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Doing fantastic. I think you're going to want to retake that opening, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, and welcome to the Growth Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Darren Graham, and today's host, oh my God, I'll start again.
Take your time. Don't worry a thing about it. It's all good.
Hi, and welcome to the Growth Fanatics podcast brought to you by 408 Media. I'm your host, Darren Graham, and what a show we have for you today, ladies and gents. Today's guest is Bill Stinnett of Sales Excellence. Bill is a well-renowned sales trainer and author of multiple sales books. And today he's going to be delving into the secrets of sales and how you can turn more prospects into paying customers. So Bill, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Darren. I appreciate it. Good to see you this morning.
Yeah, good. Thanks a lot for coming on. Yeah, so obviously we're going to be talking a lot about sales, how we can be generating or closing more deals rather than generating more leads. But first, for people that don't know about you, can you tell them a bit about who you are, your business, and how you help people?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I started selling 40 years ago, believe it or not.
Wow.
I don't look 77, but I actually started in sales when I was 14 years old in retail sales. And
Wow.
in college, I got involved in direct sales for a few years and moved into corporate sales in my 20s. And about 20 years ago now, 2001, I started a company called Sales Excellence to focus on sales training and consulting. And that's what we've been doing. We've been really blessed to work with a lot of well-known companies throughout the world. We're training on 6 continents now, and
Wow.
It's been a wild ride.
Brilliant. So you've got the Sales Excellence, but you also have got some books that you've written as well on different things. So could you tell us a bit about the books and how they sort of came about?
Yeah, thanks. So how they came about is an interesting story. I started doing workshops in 2001, as I mentioned. And the more I did, the more I realized there were some, what I thought referred to as like the greatest hits. There were certain comments or topics or tools that I was introducing that everybody seemed to really love.
Yeah.
And so after 3 years in business, I thought, well, this really maybe needs to become a book. And I was really fortunate to know someone who introduced me to an editor at McGraw-Hill's, one of the largest business publishers in the world, and sent a proposal. And sure enough, they loved it and published a book in 2004 and then another one in 2006.
That's crazy. That's really cool. So obviously you're well known for saying that salespeople and business owners are too obsessed with getting more leads. But why do you say that? What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so you're right. That is something that has become a bit of a mantra for me as of late because it's always been true. But I think today more than ever, the nature of literally living virtual, if not only just working virtual, has further made prospecting and business development more and more challenging all the time. And so what a lot of companies feel like, of course, is I need more leads. And they're going to reach out to companies like yours. They're going to engage in social media marketing themselves or brand marketing or proactive outreach with account executives or SDRs, I guess they're called these days. And the goal is we need more leads. We want more leads because the thought is if I got more leads, I'm going to close more business. But here's what I really believe is true. We can close more of the leads we're already getting right now if we focus a little bit on improving our sales skills.
Completely, 100%. Like I was saying to you just before we started recording, a lot of companies, like you say, bring us on board to generate leads for the sales teams. But sometimes we can work with the marketing teams or the sales teams and get feedback saying, oh, the leads aren't great or the leads aren't very good. But then we actually go through the process of how that lead came to you and the amount of information they've given you. You're like, well, I don't know how much warmer that lead can be. What kind of, like you say, what processes have you got in place to deal with that lead?
Yeah. So if we took a pile of leads that your company generated or anybody generated as external or internal, we took a pile of these, we have to remember that there's going to be a bit of a bell curve to it, which means that on the high end, there might be 10% who are absolutely ready to buy something right now.
Yeah.
And on the other bottom 10 or 20% are probably, quite frankly, nothing more than a name and number. They might have told somebody they had an interest. That, who knows, the person that made the telephone call might have just misunderstood it, or maybe they talked to an individual in the company who had an interest, but his or her boss has no interest. So you're going to have some at the top that are absolutely going to buy, and some at the bottom who are absolutely not going to buy. The key, I think, to success is to, what about that 60% or so in the middle, maybe even 80% in the middle, that can become valid and qualified prospects. They're just not ready to buy this instant. So when we say a lead is no good or not warm enough or not qualified enough, what we're sometimes saying is they're not ready to buy yet.
Yeah.
That should be fine, because if we're doing a good job of nurturing those leads and building relationships and presenting ideas and positioning what we have for sale, we're going to turn a lot more of those into opportunities. And that's the reason I say I think a lot of our attention needs to be put on how do we convert leads, not just how do we close the ones that are the layups or the easy leads, if you will.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And that brings me on to my next question, which kind of one thing you've said already is concentrating on a sort of 60 to 80% of people that are kind of ready to buy. If you were sort of working with a sales team, what would be your like 3 top tips for converting essentially more warmer leads into paying customers?
So the ones that are near that point of buying something, just suggestions on conversion?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So it seems to me that when we have a lead for an opportunity, typically we use that term lead when it's somebody we don't know all that well.
Yes.
If we already have an existing client or we've got an existing relationship, we don't usually call that a lead. Sometimes it's just a referral or a relationship. So a lead does suggest this is someone I don't know very well. So that tells me then that one of the main things we have to do the instant we get them on the phone or video conference or whatever we're going to chat with them is to start to develop some rapport, earn some trust, and build a relationship. Now, there might be a bunch of other things that we want to do as well, but to me, that's where we start. And that starts, I believe, earning that trust and building that rapport starts with a genuine interest in them and who they are, their business and what they're trying to accomplish, and seeking to understand before trying to be understood, as the famous author Stephen Covey wrote in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so that would be number one, is that when we call somebody up, follow up a lead, we shouldn't just assume they're ready to buy now. We should start with the relationship side and start to build enough rapport that we can expect them to want to take some steps with us. Just because they're ready to buy something doesn't necessarily mean they want to buy from us. We have to establish that rapport and earn some trust before we even have a right to ask them for the business.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think that's one of the big things. You've hit the nail on the head, because I've been in a situation before where you're looking for a new service provider and they just want to bombard you with the benefits or the why they're better than the competitors, rather than what are you looking for from us? How can we help solve what problems you have? So that makes far more sense.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of, obviously we're working and living in very different times at the minute. And I can imagine there's a lot of businesses out there that are either struggling to get leads or struggling to convert leads. So if there was businesses out there that were looking to turn things around in a short space of time, in the next 30 days, for example, what kind of plan would you put in place or suggest to these? Now, obviously there's different industries and different verticals, but what would kind of be your go-to plan of action for turning around and generating or closing more deals?
So good question. I think that there is a lingering sense of quarantine.
Yeah.
That, I mean, if not a literal extension of quarantine, right? A lot of countries are still locked down to some degree. But even those countries that are starting to open up again, like the US, there's this lingering psychology of lockdown. And I'll even go further and use the word sequester, right? Like a juror that's not supposed to talk to anybody, right? And they're locked into a room with no outside access. A lot of people, a lot of would-be customers are hiding. They're not answering their phone. They're not responding to email. And so to me, I think we better adapt with the times. And what this means is we need to get more creative at communicating with customers in the way that they're willing to communicate.
Yeah, that's really good.
So I personally, as a small business owner, am bombarded with salespeople, whether they're lead generation types or more of a later stage account executive or something,
Yeah.
approaching me saying, "Can I have 15 or 20 minutes of your time?" No, you can't, because those 15 or 20 minutes are worth a lot to me, right? Take
Yeah.
your annual income and divide by the number of minutes that you work in a year, and multiply it times that 15 or 20. It can be worth a few $100s for a lot of us just to take that amount of time to talk to a salesperson when they've not given us any good reason for doing that.
Yeah.
So we have to learn to communicate better, I think, in written form, and get much smarter about our social media marketing, because that's what our customers are willing to consume.
Yes.
They might read your email. They might watch your video on YouTube. They might, in fact, see a post that you put on LinkedIn or some other place like that. And they'd be willing to absorb and digest some of that information when they're not willing to jump on the phone for 15 or 20 minutes. So I never say yes to the 15 or 20 minutes with a stranger. If they're willing to send me something and help me get spun up on the ways that they have helped other companies like me achieve something that I likely want to achieve, I take that step. Let me just elaborate on this a little bit, Darren. It would be a little bit like dating, where you meet somebody for the first time, and then you say, let's go on one date, and on that very first date, we're talking about let's get engaged or let's get married. I'm not there yet, right? Let's have some coffee. Let's order a pizza. Let's get to know each other a little bit. Who knows? Maybe we'll even go to a movie. We have to spend some time around one another before we're willing to make that commitment. And so what happens is salespeople want to jump to the very end of the process and close a deal without working through all the courtship. And I've never used that word before, by the way, but that courtship, what just occurred to me, that's crucial.
Yeah.
So we have to be thinking about here's a great takeaway for your listeners. What's the next logical or reasonable step that they would need to take?
Yeah.
And I say reasonable because it's a step that they have to be willing to, or to make sense in taking. So maybe I'd be willing to watch a 2-minute video overview when I wouldn't be willing to take 15 or 20 minutes on a telephone call. So if you're only willing to talk to me and you're not going to warm me up with anything else, then you probably are never going to get my attention.
So actually what a lot of the people that want to go from point A to point Z straight away is they actually need to put more touch points in between a contact. So like you've just said there, so instead of that first, let's say it was a cold call to a person, do you want to buy my stuff? Basically, actually, we do this specifically for your industry. I appreciate your time's busy. Here's a 2-minute video. Take a look. If that's of interest, it would be great to jump on a call and sort of kind of elongate the sales process rather than trying to shorten that cycle.
Well, I'm a huge believer in shortening sales cycles.
Yeah.
But the way to shorten a sales cycle is to move through the steps we need to move through just more quickly.
Yeah.
It's not by skipping steps. So for example, here's a good example maybe to think about this. If I'm going to leave London and I'm going to drive to Edinburgh, I don't wait for all of the lights to turn green between here and there. I start out down the path, and then if I'm using, let's say, a GPS on my phone or something, then I don't have to know every turn that I'm going to take all the way there. I just need to go, down to this road and take a right. And then you're going to go 8.5 miles and you're going to take a left. And we need to think about those steps to get from here to there. And what's the next reasonable step? Because I'm going to go ahead and make this even more blunt, Darren, if that's okay with you.
Go for it.
Your customer's not going to jump to getting married. They're not going to do it. So to expect them to want to get married on the first phone call is insane.
Yeah.
So learn to take the steps and earn the rapport and earn the trust, meet more people in the organization, seek to understand, put together a good concept of how what you provide can fit in and impact their business. It has to be a series of things that we do to win business. It's not just, do you want to place the order today?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Here's a question that's just come. Does that mean then that as a sales rep or whoever within an organization, should they be thinking more about their own kind of branding and their own sort of visibility whether that be, like you've just said, in different forms of now the normal communication, like you said, on LinkedIn, on messenger platforms. Should they be thinking of their own personal branding to bring people essentially to them and start this sort of process off?
I sure think so. Here's something I ask people frequently. When you're getting on a telephone call with your customer, do you ever look at LinkedIn to get a sense of who they are and how long they've worked there and what their work history might have been and maybe some of their job responsibilities? Do you ever kind of take a look at them on LinkedIn, for example, before you call? And most salespeople say, well, I know that I should. Sometimes I don't, but I know that I probably should. And yes, I frequently do. And my question is don't you think your customer's doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Don't you think that they're going out to LinkedIn and typing in your name just to see what comes up?
Yeah.
How long have you worked there? What's your work history? Do you have any kind of a background with this? In fact, I'll go one step further. They might even be out looking at Facebook and Instagram on you too.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about what can the world see about me as a person, separate maybe even from my company.
Yeah.
And make sure that what people are able to go type into Google or some of their search engine and find out about me is what I want them to see.
Yeah.
So I absolutely believe that individuals should think about personal branding. They should think about adding value personally to the marketplace. I think every salesperson ought to have a solid LinkedIn profile and be commenting on their customers' content and putting out their own content on a regular basis. Even if it's just resending or reposting some stuff that your company's done, make sure that you're out there trying to become a recognized resource in the industry. They're not going to buy from somebody that they don't think is with it and knows their business and is willing to put good stuff in the market. Yeah.
And you've just said these, that sort of hit that on the head there with it. I mean, kind of going off a tangent, you kind of want someone that's, especially that's got the finger on the pulse and knows what's going on. I mean, recently I went and was looking to buy a new mountain bike. At the time we were speaking to a few people on the phone, went into a few shops. And obviously, like we all do these days, we do a ton of research online to work out what we want and then kind of whittle it down to, right, let's go and speak to people and kind of, I've got an idea of what I want to buy now. But the amount of people that I was talking to that didn't understand like some of the influencers that I'd come across that were suggesting certain brands or certain styles of bike for certain types of riding completely put me off wanting to purchase from them. So like you've just said there, if their personal branding isn't on point and isn't showing them that they're keeping current, that can completely throw things off as well.
Yeah, and what it shows sometimes is that they don't really understand their own business very well. I figure that if I can know more about what I want to buy than they know, if I can just simply go on a few websites and learn more about it than what the person selling it knows, why do I need them exactly?
That's it, yeah.
And so if they are not familiar with their own product set or how it applies, or as I said earlier, if they're not willing to ask me some questions ahead of time before they start pushing something, it's a huge turnoff because they're trying to make a sale. They're not trying to help me. And customers can smell it a mile away.
Yeah. Massive. Couldn't agree more. Bill, I could sit and speak to you all day about this. Honestly, it's been fantastic. I mean, my background was initially in sales as well, so it's been really good to hear about these sort of things. I've been through it, and a lot of the books and stuff I've read before are BS in some cases, but a lot of the stuff that's coming through from you makes a lot of sense.
Well, hey, let's note something, right? My initials are BS after all. So, it's just for what it's worth. I recognize that. But you're right.
That's now a good thing then.
I don't know. As I continue to see articles and things being put out that are dead wrong about our sales process and the things we should think and the things that we should do. When I started in sales training in 2001, my entire intent was to help salespeople learn how to think like their customer, to literally perceive the world from the other side of the desk. because when we do, then it changes everything about the way we engage, the kind of questions we ask, the amount of empathy we're showing. Everything changes when I start to try to see it from their perspective.
Yeah.
And so I took that philosophy and turned it into a business with Sales Excellence. And then 3 years later, I published a book called that, Think Like Your Customer, right?
Yeah.
And it's been quite successful. We published that in 9 different languages, as I said, with one of the largest publishers in America. And so, largest publishers in the world.
Yeah.
And even in that case, I got to tell you something. I didn't call up and say, hey, I've got this great book. Here's what you need to buy from me. When I approached McGraw-Hill, I said, I've got a book that your readers are going to want, and here's why. Here's why your readers are going to want it. Here's why when one person reads this, they're going to want to buy a copy for everybody else on their sales team. Right. Even in that instance, I was constantly talking in the customer perspective and seeing the world from their side of the desk. So if we're unwilling or unable to do that, we'll forever be a salesperson.
Yeah.
But I want to be more of a partner to people. And that's what makes people want to do business with you. And I'll just throw one more thing in.
Brilliant.
It makes them want to do business with you, even if you cost a little more.
Yes, definitely.
That's a key piece right there. Because if my only strategy is I'm cheaper than my competitor, the problem is that my competitor can just drop the price and they can steal that competitive advantage instantly. I don't want to be cheaper. I want to be better.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to be better is to be more intent in understanding the customer and their problems they're faced, the goals they're trying to achieve, and then offering up a solution as a partner to help them get from here to there.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Brilliant. I mean, thanks a lot for your time today and sharing the golden nuggets. For people that want to get to know you, find out a bit more about you, take a look at your books. I know you mentioned that you've got a new project that's coming out soon. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that and where people can get hold of you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for those who are corporate entities and have a sales team, I would direct you to the website I started 20 years ago called Sales Excellence. And there we do consulting and training of every imaginable kind, a lot of online offerings, which of course is crucial in today's world, both on-demand video and live video conference and so forth training. So that's an ideal place for those who have a sales team to go. But to your point, yes, I am launching a brand new website and a brand new business really underneath the main business that I'm calling salestrainingyou.com. So that's going to be for individuals that want to invest in themselves, for small sales teams maybe, but also for private business owners. So a lot of small business owners that just simply want to develop their sales skills. If they're getting leads and they just like to learn how to close more of those leads, I can help you. So salestrainingyou.com would be a good place to go to learn more.
Brilliant. And for everyone listening, for everyone watching, we'll put all the links to the books and the websites in the show notes. But again, Bill, really appreciate all your time and thanks for sharing all your nuggets of wisdom with our listeners.
Gladly. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, sir.
No problem. Thank you.